Okay. Can you see the full screen on the presentation? Good?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, very good. So thank you everybody that are here with us right now watching. And thank you all of you that are here with us as well. Super happy to have our friend Mauricio here. It's so many years, Mauricio, I don't even remember. It's still from, I met Mauricio in New York. I think I met you one time in Florida when I came to Florida to a big event from, I think it was from the Federation, I don't remember. And then you went to New York a few times to do big events, and it was always so much nice.
So many events, I don't even remember.
So many, so many. Oh my God, my skin is still not. Just the skin. But anyway, I asked Mauricio to write a little thing about himself, and very humble. He wrote very little, really. But I'm just going to read what he said. He said, born in Rio, Brazil, he was educated in Spiritism since his youth, when he was living in the capital of Brazil, Brasilia. So after moving to the United States, he was one of the founders of the Spiritist Society of Palm Beach in Boca Raton. And professionally, he has been involved in telecommunications in the technical field for 28 years. And by the way, some of your friends from Boca Raton are online right now watching. They just sending me a message. We want to see Mauricio, and they are online seeing you. So Mauricio, thank you so much for coming. John, would you turn off the lights? Let's see if we can.
Hello, everybody. I was just sitting here doing the prayer, and I got so emotional because like, about 30 some years ago, when I came here, when I came to live here, there was no Spiritism anywhere in Palm Beach County. And we started doing our meetings at home with some friends that we found. And a couple of years later is when we found some people here in Miami too. And they actually had a federation also. We first met and got together with Aide and Benjamin Rodriguez. I don't know if you guys know, but they already had a federation that was having meetings here on 8th Street. Is this street or avenue? A couple blocks north of here. So during the prayer, I was just remembering, because those were the first spiritists we met in America, and we started congregating with them. So whenever I come down here, I remember those times, those good times. Since we have understood ourselves as humanity, we have thought about, is this it? Is this life it? Is this body it? Does it just go 6 feet under, and that's that? Why so much learning? Why so many struggles? Why so much love and hate and all these feelings and emotions and all that? If all is gonna happen to us is nothing, we're all gonna go into some nothingness, non-existent anymore. So we have always, as philosophers that we have always been, all of us human beings, whenever we question something, whenever we think about something, we try to decipher something, we automatically become philosophers. So human beings have always thought about, what is this life for? What is death? Is there life after death? Now, when we got to the 19th century, is when not only we continued to think about these things, but we started really deepening our research about what life is, and if there is more than just this materialistic, physical life that we know of. And Allan Kardec, as many of you, I'm sure, have studied about, was one of the pioneers who actually took the time as a scientist, an amazing scientist that he was, a person that knew like 5 or 6 languages, a person that was a professor of chemistry, of physics, math, and many other subjects. He actually, when he came in contact with mediumistic phenomena of all kinds, he saw that there was some intelligence behind it all. And he was like, started studying these table movements, rappings, and the mediums who were talking and passing these messages on. And Kardec was like, you know, earthly science is not truly capable right now of understanding this the way we practice earthly science or mainstream science. So Kardec decided to develop this whole new method to include what materialistic science wouldn't even think about observing back then. How do I do the slides here?
I'm just here, the arrow.
Okay. So in this study of Professor Marcelo Goulão Pimentel, which is one of the most details of studies that I've seen, research studies that I've seen about Kardec in his method, Allan Kardec's method for investigating mediumship phenomena. I took just 2 phrases from it, but if you guys ever have the time, please take a look at it. There's a source right there. I'm sure the PowerPoint's going to be online, right? It's just 156 pages long, and it's an unbelievable study. He actually went to France and spent a long time doing this research, but this is what I got from just for our presentation today. Kardec formulated and tested several hypotheses to explain the spiritual phenomena he was observing. Among them, fraud, hallucination, unconscious, clairvoyance, telepathy, and others. Through the examination of his research processes and the development of his theories, such as on the sensation of the spirits soon after disembodied, as well as during possession or channeling, we have come to realize that his work was grounded on a broad and diverse empirical basis, and that the formulation and reformulation of his explanatory theories were continuous and progressive. So as Professor Pimentel keeps on going on his research, he keeps on concluding over and over how much of a pioneer Kardec was in the field of the research of spiritual life. One of the things that it was major in the way Kardec researched the new science, as he called it, was that he said that the authority that this new science of spiritism had was, anybody remembers what the authority of the science of spiritism is? No? I'm sure you guys will remember once I say it. The universality of teachings. So what Allan Kardec was looking for all throughout his research is the information I'm getting cannot be just from one medium or a couple of mediums. The information I'm getting cannot be from a couple of mediums or 10 mediums, but coming from the same spirit or just a couple of spirits. That's why he started communicating through letters back then. There was no email and so on. He started communicating to like 1,000 spiritist groups, or back then it wasn't like spiritist centers as we see here, right? It was familiar groups who were having mediumship meetings back then. And Professor Pimentel actually, doing in his research, he says that he found out that Kardec had communicated through 10,000 letters. He had received from these groups 10,000 letters from different groups around the world. Wherever he could find a group, he would communicate with them. And he would send them questions, the same questions to all these groups, and get the answers from the different groups through different mediums from different spirits. And he would then compile the questions, the answers, and that's how he compiled the Spirit's book, getting the great majority of answers that were kind of about the same. He would go and answer the questions that we see in the Spirit's book now. That is called the authority of the Spiritist doctrine or science, or however you want to call Spiritism. The authority is the universality of teachings. And Professor Pimentel also says that 1,000 of those letters is what Kardec called like very important letters, that had very key information. Just like some questions in the Spirit's book are a very key question that open up many branches to all other subjects regarding those questions. It's what we call today, nowadays in modern science, crucial experiment. You can have many different experiments about something, but some experiments are so crucial because they really bring that information that truly proves a point. A point. For example, the theory of relativity. When it came out, several scientists were analyzing it, and only a few of those experiments really proved that the theory of relativity was truthful, was correct. So those kinds of experiments are called crucial experiments. And not only Allan Kardec, but I listed a few others researchers that are so important for us to understand scientifically how spirituality works, what spirituality is, right? So I picked a few of them, Emanuel Swedenborg, and these dates here, it's not when they were born and they died. These dates are when they were most active, like publishing research papers or writing books and so on. So Emanuel Swedenborg, Alexander Aksakov, the Russian, William Crookes, Ian Stevenson, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, Raymond Moody Jr., Brian Weiss, and later on, Evan Alexander. And we can see like people like, for example, William Crookes, that many people don't know much about William Crookes. William Crookes, like if he was alive today compared to the scientists we have, he would be something, what's like a great scientist? Like what are the renowned scientists nowadays?
In the present.
Huh? In the present. Anybody can think of a name? No? Nobody? How about Neil deGrasse Tyson? He's always on TV, right? What about the one that just died a few years ago, who was in a wheelchair? What was his name?
Oh, yeah.
What was his name?
Oh gosh.
Okay.
Hawkins.
Hawkins,
Oh,
thank
yes.
you. So that would be like William Crookes, okay? He was the most renowned scientist back then. He got like most awards than any scientist back then. Some of the things William Crookes invented was the cathode rays that became the principle of our TVs. Not nowadays, because now we have plasma TVs, but the tube TVs, with the red, green, and blue rays. So William Crookes developed the principal knowledge of even modern day fertilizers, agricultural fertilizers. William Crookes, at the end of his life, after many people have said that many other scientists have said he was crazy because of his research with spirituality, he developed the shaded glasses that nowadays we use whenever people who work with torches and torching things, soldering things, you got to use those really dark shaded glasses. William Crookes invented the chemicals that made that become a reality. So William Crookes, he experimented with materialization of spirits for 2 years, with 2 spirits materializing constantly. And the reason why he got involved in that is not even because he was curious. Is because all the scientists that were seeing all these table movements asked them to verify it and try to figure out what was going on. And that's how he got involved. And once he got his research done, he's like, okay, I don't have to do anything else with this. He's published a book, and he's like, here's my research. This is true. The spirit world exists. They materialize. I've been talking to them. I dance with them, and I can touch them, and they exist, right? And then people started saying he was crazy, and he was having an affair with the lady mediums and all kinds of crazy stuff. And he received like even many, many awards after he published the book about the spirit world. Ian Stevenson, in 1965, he wrote a book about life after death, and it was actually near-death experiences. And this one business person, who was actually the guy who invented the Xerox machine, I don't remember his name, Chester Carlton. He wrote his book. He read Ian Stevenson's book, and he decided to fund Ian Stevenson's research. He started out with $1 million. Said, here's $1 million for you to continue this research, because this is just amazing. And then continue for a long time to fund what Ian Stevenson created, which was the DOPS. Still existent today. The Division of Perceptual Studies in the University of Virginia. Anybody ever heard of the DOPS?
Yes.
Anybody? Yes? Okay. Their website is just amazing. If you want to find research on spirituality, all kinds of these different things there. Mediumship, materialization, tables, objects, in-between life memories, past life memories, near-death experiences. They have a whole database of research papers there. One more amazing than the other, okay? So that's how DOTS started with Ian Stevenson. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross also published books and papers. I think her first book was called In Death and Dying. She was examining how terminal patients acted right before and when they died. super amazing research. Raymond Moody Jr., one of the most known ones, still alive. There's some great, even like at the present time interviews with him on YouTube. Brian Wise, down here in Miami, back late 80s and 90s. He's still very active. What was the book he wrote? I forget. Life and Many Masters, right? That was the first one, and many others. And I remember when he came out with this book, I came here with some friends to watch him live, to do a conference live here at the Miami Convention Center, I think. And then Evelyn Alexander, this incredible neuro surgeon who actually had a near-death experience, was a total skeptical guy, and had this experience. So we have, this is just some of the people I listed, right? We could make like 10 other slides of people who have done or are doing major research on spirituality. And here we see a picture of Axatov, right? Monitors for fraud while medium Eusapia Palladino levitates a table in Milan. This is the kind of experience that has always been done. These are serious people. And of course, there's tons of fraud. There has always been fraud. There's always been people who want to make money with whatever they can find, right? But these are really like people who were really interested in the subject and did all kinds of experiences. William Crookes, for example, he would get a newspaper from that day, sit it behind a table. He wouldn't look at it. He would just sit it behind him on a table. And as they were having the mediumistic meeting, he would ask the spirit that was channeling, I want you to tell me what word or words I'm going to cover with my finger. And William Crookes, without looking at the newspaper, he would put his finger on the newspaper and ask the spirit, what words am I covering? And then verify if the spirit knew the exact words he was covering. Why wouldn't he touch the paper before? Why wouldn't he read the paper and choose the words before? Because he thought, okay, maybe the medium might be able to read my mind, so I wouldn't even know what the words are. So this is the kind of experiences we're talking about, right? It's just incredible when you read William Crookes' experiments and you see that the proof is right there. And a couple of decades ago, I was watching a renowned Spiritist speaker, Raul Teixeira, who is also a physicist. And Raul said in his speech, there is no proof, there's no scientific proof of all these things that we study, these spiritual things that we study and that we know. And then I was home, I was kind of depressed. I'm like, oh my God, seriously, Raul said that, oh my goodness, there's no proof. You see, sometimes we're in this bubble. We're always studying these things among people who believe in spirituality. So we start thinking like that everybody, this makes so much sense. And we start thinking like everybody also, if they came in contact with this, they would believe in it. And they're like, okay, that this is, all these things that we see are provable, right? So when Raul said that, I'm like, oh man, I got to think about this more. And for a few years, I was thinking about it, and I found the answer of what he was trying to say in the codification and in the Spirits magazine that Allan Kardec wrote for 12 years, if you don't know. Every month, he wrote a whole magazine in which he explained the experiences that were being done either by him or by other people in regards to all of these items here, right? And what the important thing that Kardec says is that there's mainstream science, and there's science that encompasses what is not just materialistic, what is not just physical. And Kardec keeps on explaining that in all of his books, in all of his magazines, that this is the science that can prove spirituality. If we only use mainstream science, which is totally contaminated by our egos, because a lot of us, we don't want to believe that we can be born again in a body that is a different color than the color we like now, or in a different gender than the gender that we like now, or in a different social class, or in a country that we hate, or from people that we, in a country with people that we hate. So we don't want that. We don't want to accept that. So in order for science to actually prove these things, it must be a science that it encompasses a lot more than just materiality, just physicality. And this is what Kardec kept on developing, this new science. Here we're back to the division of perceptual studies. The primary focus of docs is investigating the mind's relationship to the body and the possibility of consciousness surviving physical death. In general, this process involves studying phenomena that challenge mainstream scientific paradigms regarding the nature of human consciousness. I'm going to play the video now. First one. So now we're going to see what the scientists, some of the scientists at DOPS are telling us about this new science that Kardec was talking about and came about with, right?
Sometimes the work you do does not fit the sort of normal paradigms of science, and how you try to overcome that.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it may be slightly quixotic in the sense that we're trying to take a scientific approach to material that may not lend itself to scientific approaches. But if we do things carefully, which we certainly try to do, then there is this empirical evidence that accumulates. So, with our 2,000 cases of past life memories and our 1,000+ cases of near-death experiences and everything else, there are patterns that develop that we can study, and it's not controlled laboratory studies, but it's something that needs an explanation. And yes, it doesn't fit into the mainstream materialist paradigm, so that means the paradigm may need to evolve or need to grow.
There you go, Kim.
Yes, and well, some of my research, I can do randomized control studies, looking at, you can teach people different meditative states. You can try to alter their states of consciousness in different ways, and then explore the experiences they have. And so I think Jim is right that we are sort of skirting the edge of some of this. And some of our work is more qualitative, sort of collecting the stories. Again, science is an evolution, and it's changing. And in my world, I see it changing to include more expansive approaches to things, more individualized research studies. Certainly in some of the BIPOC research that we do, we know we have to change the way we're doing science. We have to be more inclusive. We have to expand our methods. Not everything's going to fit into a randomized control trial. And that has been our standard. And that's fine. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I think we need to look beyond that, as Jim said, and really be more inclusive. One of the things I want to honor is that none of this stuff we're talking about is new. And I don't want you to think that we're acting like we discovered it. This has been around in ancient cultures and indigenous communities forever. So we also are, I feel strongly, are obligated to reach out to those people who have done this work, the shamans, the medicine men, the people who have this long history, and include them. And that's one of my goals as well in the work I'm doing, is to be more expansive in not just the scientific approach, but the people we include.
Okay. That's good on that one. So as we see, even scientists nowadays, they have got to the conclusion that mainstream science is not enough to prove spiritual concepts. We need more, and that's what they're looking into. As the old saying goes, where there's smoke, there is fire. If we see people who die for a few minutes, scientifically die for a few minutes, or for a few days, or for a couple of months, and they come back and they're like, this is not death, there's something else going on. I could see everything that was going on here when you guys were doing the surgery on me. I could visit my home and see what was going on there in my house. When you see thousands and thousands of verifiable cases of children, like the work of Ian Stevenson, who studied 2,500 cases, 1,200 of those were verifiable cases of very young children who had just started talking. And as soon as they were able to talk and to communicate, they started talking about a past life. 1,200 of those cases were verified cases by Ian Stevenson in his books. And he would find out where that kid was born through the kid and go visit the place, go check the family, check the names, and even how that kid that was in his past life was died, and so on and so forth. All of these verifications. So even though it's not all children, if you have 5% of them, 2% of that going on, where there's fire, there's smoke, right? And so that is why all of these things are totally verifiable. They are what we're talking about, crucial experiments. They are the proof that all of the concepts, the spiritual concepts that we study, they are true, and they exist. Another video. So Dr. Armider, he when the book of Ian Stevenson came out, he studied the book and he researched the book, and he started talking about it also until he wrote his own book on the subject. Yes. Because I'm not a scientist, I'm using the words of the scientists, okay?
Integrity. Somebody said, well, look, why even get involved in this, because 80% of it's fraud. And I believe that maybe that may be true. That may be true. 80% of it may be fraud. But the important point is that if 100 people jump off the Empire State Building and 95 of them land just as you expect they would, painfully and disastrously, and five land gently and walk away, what do you think needs to be explained? The 5 that landed gently and walked away, they're statistically deviant. So some people will say in statistics, you don't have to explain any of this data because it's so infrequent and it's statistically deviant, and in most cases like this will turn out to be frauds. But when you take the clear cases and the hard cases, you can't explain those away by saying they're like the other ones, because you take them because they're very much unlike the other ones that were wrong. So that's sort of stuff. So I mean, but there will be other objections too. I've heard people say reincarnation couldn't occur because we don't know how it could occur. We don't know how. As scientists, we don't know what the mechanism is. We don't know how it couldn't have a mechanism that we could examine, so we can't know that it occurs. As objections go, that certainly leaves a good deal to be desired, because you may not know how something occurs, but have plenty of evidence that it occurs. I don't know how Slewfoot won the 5th race at Hialeah, but I can know that he did very easily. I don't know how you got into this room, but I know that you're here, that sort of story. So you don't have to know why things end up the way they are. Although in mature science, all our explanations will be causal. But there are kinds of explanations of events that are not causal, but they're purely statistical. You know that something's occurring, but you don't know why.
Back in 1980, Dr. Brian Weiss was using hypnotherapy.
Go back to the slide now.
Yeah, just, yes.
So, as he was kind of mentioning, so many people say that all these things about mediums, that they're channeling, and all the emotions that we have, and love and hate and whatever other emotions, these are all creations of our brains, right? Now it's just a bunch of neurons, talking to each other, connecting to each other, and a bunch of chemicals in there that are doing all this stuff. And the more we understand the brain, we've divided up the parts of the brain in different parts, and each part does one thing, and it controls a certain set of our physical abilities or of our emotions. And we even have all these pills. We interact with our brains and kind of like even control our emotions, right? Then we come across some studies. Just so we remember the IQ levels, because I cannot remember this stuff. That's why I put it on a PowerPoint. 130 and above, high IQ, 9 to 110, average, 80 to 90, below average. And we come, huh?
Let's do the stop and then we'll come back.
You want to stop right now?
Yeah, so we can stop now.
Okay.
And come back.
Okay.
Guys, so as we are in the new format, so we will be stopping for now the recording, and then we are gonna have a break